Now, we begin this morning with the announcement that the UK government will not now fund the redevelopment of Casement Park in time for the Euro 2028 Championships. It was announced late on Friday night in a letter to Gordon Lyons from Hilary Benn and Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy. In fact, it came just a day after the First and Deputy First Ministers, along with the Finance Minister, met with the Chancellor in London. Well, I'm joined now by the GAA President, Jarlath Burns. We learned of this decision at 7:10 on Friday evening on social media. How were you informed about it?
Yeah, the same way. All of us found out about this dump of bad news at 7 o'clock on a Friday evening. It's not really the way to do business. But to be honest, we've known about this for some months. We've been, as you know, I've been pessimistic about it. I'd made that very clear back in May. Because once March came, it was really the second week of March that the tender documents were ready. We could not understand why they weren't issued, because there was urgency right from the word go. When we were approached last year to see if we would be willing to allow Casement to be used as one of the main stadia for Euro 2028, we were excited. The IFA were very excited by it. It was a wonderful opportunity for all of Northern Ireland to come together on a major project to see if we could do this. Unfortunately, we have failed. And now for the GAA, the priority for us is to build Casement. And that's really what we are going to put all of our energy in.
So who do you blame for this, that we're now in this position where you've had two commitments from two governments and they've reneged on both?
Well, I think personally the Labour government did their best. Whenever they come into power, they were up against the clock. We knew that. Even coming into May, we knew it was going to be very difficult to get this across the line, because the stadium was going to have to be up and running for a full year to road test it against the specifications of the Euro 2028 competitions. We knew we were up against it. I feel that the Labour government did their best in the 2 or 3 months that they had, but they were up against it, and obviously then we knew it wasn't going to work, and we were just waiting for the bad news to come, and then it eventually did.
From the outside looking in, do you get a sense that the government strung this out, basically, because they knew the clock was ticking, they knew at some stage they would reach a point where they would simply run out of time? Is that what's happened here?
Well, we have to try and accept the bona fides of the government. We felt that they did put a lot of energy into this. We were expecting maybe it was going to take a month of them for them to get round to the Casement Park issue, but right from the word go, Hilary Benn was talking positively about the prospect of Casement being built. And for a time, our pessimism changed to optimism. And even last week at the family talks with the Irish government, we were starting to get optimistic that there was going to be a major announcement there. But obviously, there's been a lot of bad news given out in the last week. I think that they have come to the conclusion that there's very little money left, and they had to make very difficult decisions. And I suppose it's the way in which it happened is disappointing. But we in the GAA feel that the damage was done back in March, whenever the tender documents weren't issued, because we were really up against the clock at that stage.
In terms of the figures that have now been put in the public domain, the government says the cost has risen dramatically. They're now talking about more than £400 million. That's a massive jump from where we were initially. Do you recognise those figures? Do you believe those figures are accurate?
No, those figures certainly don't align with the figures that we've had. And the Ulster GAA have been working very closely with a consultant team of stadia experts for the last 10 years. They were coming in with a completely different set of figures based on...
What are those figures?
Well, this is very commercially sensitive, because we do hope to go out to tender again, and I don't want to be given the exact figures, but there were almost 100 million, maybe less than what we were talking about here, from a group of consultants that come in and spend 3 weeks in Northern Ireland, benchmarked the specifications of the GAA stadium against Premier League stadiums, with all of the overlay, the fit-out that they have, and obviously that there needs to be fully seated stadia and segregation as well, and all of the security implications there. GAA stadia are much more modest affairs, I have to say, and I just feel that that was unfair to come out with that figure of 400 million, because it certainly didn't align with any of the figures that we have had from our management consultants, who are stadia experts, who have worked with Ulster GAA for the last 10, 12 years, and have actuarially benchmarked our stadium against our other GAA stadiums.
So let's focus on where to next, because we're now left in a scenario where you're going to have a GAA-only stadium, for instance. You're going to have to work out the cost. You're going to have to figure out what money is going to come from. Do you have a figure as to what that's going to cost?
No, well, we do in our heads, which I'm not going to divulge today, and if you don't mind, because that is commercially sensitive. Because if we do go out to tender, we have to make sure that the tender companies come back with a figure that is realistic. And we felt if that had happened in March, then we would have had a figure in the market that we could have worked off, and not this top-of-the-head stuff that we were raising every day. And I will say that the last year has cost everybody a lot of money, because we know that the cost of fabrication and construction and steel is rising exponentially against far greater than the cost of inflation. So the Ulster GAA and all of us have lost out. We've really wasted a full year because of this pantomime we've had in the last year.
But you know, of course, the financial picture out there is pretty bleak, not just in Belfast, but obviously, crucially, in London as well. How are you going to begin that process now of trying to get money from London for your GAA stadium, knowing the many other pressures out there the government is facing?
Yeah, and if we look at superficially on the surface, there is that argument to be made. But if we look at what the contribution that the GAA makes to Irish society and to the society in Northern Ireland, you will see that we are definitely deserving of government money. So in this very city, for example, under we have been working with the Belfast City Council. We have invested 1 million in pitches because we are chronically underprovised in Belfast for pitches. We have invested 3 million in this city as well, in Gaelfast, and this is an important point. I am opening a pitch today in Moneyglass and a walking track. For a community that have just raised all of that money themselves. Last week it was in Brook, we're doing the same. But GAA communities invest millions every year.
Let's just cut to the chase of what this is going to be, because we know already there's about £120 million on the table. Previous commitments from the executive around £62 million, 40 million now from the Irish government, 15 million, of course, from the GAA. You will want Stormont perhaps to increase its allocation. Is the GAA prepared to step up and offer more money as well?
Well, I spoke to Michelle O'Neill this morning, and we've been speaking to politicians all over the weekend. And she is adamant that Casement will be built and that the money will be found to build Casement. But to be honest, at this point in time, we are still waiting. We are waiting now. Hilary Benn, in the last paragraph of that letter, has said that they will make a financial commitment to Casement. And we do know that even Rishi Sunak said in that very garbled and very well prepared statement he made in his one-day visit to Northern Ireland pre-election that there would be a substantial amount of money given to Casement. All we are asking the British government now is, tell us how much so we can build our stadium.
And just to be clear, is the GAA prepared to up its allocation as well, or is that 15 million, that's it?
Well, the allocation that we have at the moment is 58 million. That's the money that we have pledged ourselves, plus the money that we negotiated off the Irish government. That's almost matching the executive.
That's not what it says on the label. The Irish government money is Irish government money, it's not GAA money.
That money was negotiated by the GAA, and that's the money that we are bringing to the table, 58 million, and it's very important that we recognise that.
So, do you believe that, given the financial picture that we now face, that we will see a stadium built in Casement before the Euros begin, even for instance in 2028? Will we have matches being played there by then?
Well, looking and listening to what people have been saying to us, because it really is in the hands of other people in terms of the money that they're going to give us to build that stadium. And remember that we were the people who stayed in the Maze project right until the very end. It wasn't our fault that any of this happened. We stayed in this process as well in good faith. And I think that the least that can happen now is that West Belfast has a proper Casement Park where we can play Ulster finals. And remember, there will be a dividend back to the government in terms of tax for that, 20% VAT on every ticket. Very soon that money will be recouped back to the government. Think of the legacy in terms of hospitality and tourism and construction and transport. All of those things will bring that money back.
I just need to ask you about another story as well. Hilary Benn made this announcement by Casement on Friday. He also made an announcement that he is ruling out a public inquiry into murder of Sean Brown, of course, a well-known GAA figure. You've been with the Brown family throughout on this particular journey. What are your thoughts on that decision? Well,
if there was disappointment in the GAA about the Casement decision, there was quite a lot of anger about this. 1997, something that we thought was a random sectarian murder. Whenever the coroner's court began investigating, it discovered that there was 25 people involved. There was many, many government agents. One of the agents, the surveillance on him was dropped just the night before the murder happened. There are so many unanswered questions. And then, of course, use of public interest immunity certificates on redacted material on something that we thought was just a random sectarian murder. And it was the coroner who said that the only way to find out the truth of what happened to a GAA chairman of Balahi GAA was by a public inquiry. That is extremely disappointing.
Jarlath Burns, we're going to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed for coming in to share your thoughts.